In 1985, I was branded as damaged goods. The label stuck to me like a shadow that refused to fade, no matter how hard I tried to scrub it away. That fateful night still haunted my dreams even after rebirth. James Grant had stood me up for our movie date. I waited alone in the darkness from 7 o'clock until 11, my heart full of foolish hope that slowly turned into cold dread. When I finally gave up and began walking back toward the supply and marketing cooperative dormitory, 3 drunken thugs appeared out of nowhere. Their laughter was crude and menacing as they dragged me into a small grove beside the road. I fought with every ounce of strength I possessed, scratching, biting, kicking, screaming until my throat burned. But I was just a slender 20-year-old girl against 3 grown men reeking of alcohol and ugly desire. They tore at my clothes, their rough hands leaving ugly bruises that bloomed like poisonous flowers across my arms, legs, and chest. The pain was sharp and humiliating. Only the lucky arrival of a group of night shift workers from the nearby power plant saved what remained of my virtue. They chased the thugs away and rushed me, bloodied and disheveled, to the hospital. I survived with my chastity technically intact, but no one believed my story. By the next morning, vicious rumors had already twisted the truth into something filthy and irreversible. She was violated by 3 men, then the number grew to 5. Whispers spread that I must have provoked them somehow. The stain clung to me relentlessly, in the pitying or disgusted glances at work, in the sudden silence that fell whenever I entered a room, and worst of all, in the cold, distant look in James Grant's eyes. Guilt eventually forced him to marry me. For the next 40 long, lonely years, he never touched me once. In his heart, I was tainted, spoiled goods, unworthy of a proud man like him, the youngest regimental commander with a glittering future. Our marriage was nothing more than a cheap act of pity, wrapped in duty and public image. He even left a will explicitly stating that he did not want to be buried beside me when he died. I lived like a widow in my own home, enduring 600 empty days and nights of crushing loneliness, while he secretly built an entire parallel life with Emily Wade. After his death, while sorting through his belongings, I discovered more than 1,000 hidden photographs of the 2 of them. They had traveled together to every corner of the country, laughing freely, raising children, playing with grandchildren, sharing intimate moments I had never known. Every year he left for months on business trips, and I, in my blind devotion and naive trust, never questioned him. My entire life had become a cruel, heartbreaking joke. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in 1985. The same year, the same body, the same pain still raw in my chest. This time, however, everything would be different. I refused to accept a hollow marriage that existed only in name. This time, I would take my fate firmly into my own hands and never let anyone decide my worth again. With steady, determined steps, I walked toward the military base to break off the engagement with James Grant once and for all. The moment I approached the entrance, I ran straight into a group of dolled-up clinic nurses clustered together like colorful birds. Their voices sliced through the air like sharpened knives. "Oh look, isn't that the big disgrace herself? Back again to pester Captain Grant into marrying her out of pity. Got yourself sullied and still have the nerve to cling to him like a leech. If something like that had happened to me, I'd have drowned myself in the river already. No face left to show anyone, and she still dares to show up here. She must have no self-awareness at all. It wasn't 3 thugs that night, I heard it was 5. My God, then she's tougher than she looks. And someone like that actually thinks she can compare to Emily Wade. Captain Grant sure has terrible luck to be stuck with damaged goods like her. I just hope he didn't catch some disgusting disease from the whole mess." Their mockery scraped against my ears like rusty blades, each word designed to cut deep. In my previous life, those same cruel words had pushed me into years of agonizing self-doubt, hypersensitivity, shame, and paralyzing timidity. I had collapsed under the weight of their judgment, believing deep down that I truly was dirty and unworthy. But after living through 2 lifetimes, I now understood the truth with crystal clarity and unshakable conviction. I had done nothing wrong. I was the victim, not the criminal. The real filth was not on my body or in my soul. It lived in the poisonous mouths and blackened hearts of these gossips who took pleasure in tearing others down. So I ignored them completely, walking past as if they were nothing more than background noise. Natalie Lane, stop right there. The prettiest woman in the entire medical unit, Emily Wade, stepped forward and blocked my path with deliberate arrogance. She folded her arms across her chest and looked down her nose at me, her beautiful face twisted with open contempt. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear what we were saying? Do you truly have no shame left at all? Or are you like a dead pig that doesn't even fear boiling water anymore? If I were you, I'd have the decency to break up with Captain Grant myself, instead of using that unfortunate incident as moral blackmail to force him into marriage. That's nothing but shameless begging. Captain Grant has such a bright and promising future ahead of him. If he really marries a withered, ruined woman like you, he'll never be able to hold his head high in front of his comrades again. You were violated because your own fate was cheap and lowly. You can't blame anyone else for it. I'm the one who truly matches Captain Grant in every way: background, looks, education, and ambition. Her face radiated smug pride as she continued, I've already been accepted into Capital Medical University. After I graduate, I won't just be an ordinary nurse anymore. I'll become a respected medical officer. What do you possibly have to compare with me? Nothing. The other nurses eagerly chimed in, their voices overlapping like a chorus of venom. Yeah, exactly. What decent man in his right mind would ever take someone like her home to meet his parents? I stayed perfectly silent, not because I was afraid of them, but because I had absolutely no interest in fighting over James Grant anymore. In my past life, both Emily and I had treated him like a rare, priceless treasure. The result? I suffered bitterly for 40 years, while Emily, though she appeared to win, spent her days sneaking around in secret without any official title or dignity. Now that I had been given this precious second chance, I had already decided to walk away. Maintaining calm came naturally and effortlessly. Emily, I said in a clear, even voice, I'm here today specifically to break off the engagement with Captain Grant. She didn't believe me at first. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. You'd really give him up just like that? Before she could press me further, she suddenly slipped and stumbled dramatically into me, then collapsed to the ground with an exaggerated cry of pain. Oh, that hurt so much. Her performance was theatrical and perfectly timed. Within seconds, James Grant came striding toward us with a dark, thunderous expression. He immediately scooped Emily up in a protective princess carry, his voice full of tender concern. Emily, are you okay? What happened? Emily's eyes turned red and watery, her tears trembling delicately like dewdrops on fragile flower petals. For a simple nurse, she could outact the best performers in the arts troupe. I'm fine, I just slipped on my own. It really has nothing to do with Natalie. The kinder and more innocent she acted, the more James's heart ached for her, and the angrier and colder he became toward me. In his mind, Emily was simply too pure and kind-hearted, which was exactly why she kept getting bullied by others. Natalie, he said, his tone icy and disappointed, I know you've been deeply unhappy ever since that terrible incident. But you cannot take out your negative emotions on an innocent person like Emily. I'm the one who owes you a debt. What does Emily have to do with any of this? After what happened to you, she was the one who cared enough to ask after you, comfort you, and offer you support. And this is how you repay her kindness. Don't you think you're behaving like an ungrateful wolf? Doesn't your conscience hurt even a little? He shook his head slowly, his disappointment palpable. With this kind of attitude, forget about ever becoming a regimental commander's wife. You're not even fit to be a cook's wife in the canteen. Let me say it one more time for clarity. Between Emily and me, there is only pure, clean comradeship. There is nothing as filthy or improper as what you keep imagining in your head. I have already agreed to marry you out of responsibility, so stop pushing your luck and taking an inch when I give you a mile. In front of James, Emily always carefully played the role of the innocent, gentle girl, letting the other nurses deliver the ugliest insults on her behalf. One of them sneered, Natalie just doesn't know how to behave properly. She looks at everyone else as if they are unclean because she herself is dirty inside. She claims she was forced by those thugs, but who really knows? Maybe she was the one provoking them first with her behavior. I remained completely unmoved, my expression calm. James, however, could no longer contain his frustration. Enough, he barked sharply. The nurses fell silent at once. He pointed his finger directly at my face, his voice cold as winter frost. Natalie Lane, apologize to Emily right now. You've already caused me more than enough trouble. Stop holding me back from my duties. I have heavy training tasks every single day, and I don't want to keep wasting time cleaning up your endless messes. Looking at James Grant's face, the same face I had loved with desperate, foolish devotion for decades in my previous life, I felt only a profound, peaceful detachment. I had once believed I could survive without love, without touch, without warmth, as long as I could wake up and see his face every morning and grow old quietly by his side. I had convinced myself that would be enough. Now he looked ordinary. Just 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, no different from any other man on the street. The love I once felt had completely vanished, along with the rosy filter through which I used to view him. It had shattered beyond repair. James Grant, I said clearly and without hesitation, my voice steady and resolute, I am not marrying you. Let's cancel our engagement today. My words dropped like a bomb into the middle of the courtyard. The faces surrounding us shifted instantly from shock to disbelief, and then to open gossip. Well, at least the so-called disgrace finally knows her place and is doing the right thing, someone muttered under their breath. She should have left long ago instead of dragging this out. When I announced right in front of James that I was breaking off the engagement, Emily Wade's face lit up with undisguised joy and triumph. Captain Grant, we can finally see the light of day together. But instead of feeling relieved, James grew even more irritable and defensive. Natalie, that's enough of your games. You're just getting more and more carried away, aren't you? Now you're even using the threat of a breakup to pressure and manipulate me. You know perfectly well that I cannot back out of this marriage without damaging my reputation, so you think you can push me around however you like. I shook my head firmly, meeting his eyes without flinching. I don't need you to take any responsibility for me. I release you completely. With that, I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm tightly from behind. Natalie, you know I'm currently applying to join the elite Langya Special Forces. Are you breaking up with me right now deliberately to sabotage my chances? To make my superiors think I'm the kind of man who starts things but doesn't finish them, that my personal character isn't up to their strict standards. The Langya Special Forces was a newly established elite unit that represented the best of the best. James had dreamed of joining it for years. In my previous life, it had taken him 3 grueling attempts because the selection process was brutally demanding. Anyone who made it through could truly be considered among the finest soldiers in the country. I plan to take the National College Entrance Exam and attend university. I don't want to get married for the time being. That sounds like a perfectly reasonable explanation, doesn't it? If you're still worried about your application, I'll personally go speak to your superiors and make sure this situation doesn't negatively affect you in any way. James let out a short, mocking laugh full of disbelief. Ha, I knew it all along. You're just jealous of Emily. She's going to college, so now you suddenly want to follow the same path. Don't overestimate yourself, Natalie. What on earth do you have that could possibly compare with her? He didn't just lack love for me, he didn't even show basic respect. I no longer felt the need to explain or defend myself. My future exam scores would serve as the strongest, undeniable proof of my worth. After leaving the base, I headed straight toward the supply and marketing cooperative dormitory where I was staying. To my surprise, Mrs. Grant was already waiting at the entrance. Standing beside her was a man in his 40s with a greasy, shifty appearance and a calculating look in his eyes. Natalie, you're back, she said, her voice unusually sweet and pleasant for once. This is Lee Datchang from the feed factory. He earns a solid 32 yuan a month. His wife passed away a few years ago, and he has 1 child. If you marry him, you'll become the mistress of the house right away. Her real intention was painfully obvious. In my past life, she had pulled the exact same stunt to prevent me from marrying her son, introducing me to this older, twice-married man. Back then, James had stepped in to help me refuse, though I had felt too wronged and too timid to reject the offer myself, fearing I would offend my future mother-in-law. This life, I had no reason whatsoever to hold back or be polite. I'm not marrying him, I said flatly. Mrs. Grant's eyes widened in genuine outrage. You've already been sullied and ruined. What right do you have to be so picky and arrogant? My son will never marry damaged goods like you. Lee Dacheng here doesn't mind your past, so you should count yourself extremely lucky to have the chance to marry a respectable stay-toned factory worker. Lee Dacheng's eyes glinted with open greed as he leered at me, stepping closer without shame. Let's go inside and talk privately, he whispered with a disgusting smirk. I heard you're still quite fresh despite everything. You can probably handle some real fun. How about it? Just one night to start. I want to try for myself. I slapped him hard across the face. The sharp sound echoed in the quiet street. Get out of here right now, or I'm calling the police this instant. Lee Dacheng bolted away like a frightened rat. Mrs. Grant's expression darkened into pure venom. Natalie Lane, let me make myself perfectly clear. We don't want trash like you as our daughter-in-law. The only woman we will ever accept is Emily Wade. The following days passed in relative quiet. I never went to see James again. During the day, I worked diligently at the cooperative, and in the evenings, I attended night school classes to prepare seriously for the upcoming college entrance exam. You actually think you can get into university? A barnyard hen dreaming of turning into a phoenix. The director of the cooperative, Mr. Wade, Emily's own father, mocked me loudly and often in front of other workers. In the 1980s, the director held significant power. Almost everyone needing daily necessities like bicycles or sewing machines had to go through him. I ignored his mocking croaks and threw myself into studying even harder, reviewing late into the night with renewed determination. Time passed quickly, and soon the day of the college entrance exam arrived. Emily and I were assigned to the same testing site. I went alone, calm and focused. She arrived surrounded by a large supportive group, including James Grant himself. When he spotted me, his expression turned briefly awkward before settling into a familiar frown. Natalie, you're really here to take the exam. Don't waste the country's precious test papers, okay? You'll never pass anyway. I already told you I'd marry you. Stop with this pointless nonsense. I raised my hand to cut him off mid-sentence. Captain Grant, that night at the cinema, were you truly called away on a sudden mission? His face froze instantly. The truth, which I had discovered in his private diary during my previous life, was that he had not been on any mission. He had gone with Emily Wade to watch a meteor shower instead. You don't need to rack your brain coming up with more lies anymore. We have nothing to do with each other now. Without waiting for any reply, I strode confidently into the examination center. Emily caught up with me just inside. Natalie, let's make a deal. Whoever scores lower will back out gracefully on their own. A month later, the results were finally released. In those days, there was no internet, so the admission list was carefully handwritten on large red paper and posted on the giant public wall in the city square. People from all over the city came to see it. This year, the atmosphere felt even more festive than usual. Drums and gongs sounded loudly, and dragon and lion dance troupes had been invited to perform. Have you heard the exciting news? Our city has produced the highest score in the entire province this year. Whose child is so incredibly talented? Their family's ancestors must be smiling down from heaven. This achievement will bring honor and glory to the entire clan. Although the list had already been posted, it remained covered by a luxurious red silk cloth. It would not be officially revealed until noon, when the director of the Education Bureau would personally come to uncover it. But some impatient people could not wait. Emily Wade arrived with her parents, and the entire Grant family trailing behind her. Because word had already spread that our city had produced the provincial top scorer, they all looked at Emily with open pride and satisfaction, as if the achievement was already hers. The top score must definitely be Emily, someone in the crowd said confidently. That girl is both smart and beautiful. The Wade family is truly blessed by fortune. And so is the Grant family, another voice added enthusiastically. They exchanged compliments and flattery until they noticed me walking quietly up to view the list as well. Their expressions instantly changed to looks of disdain and cruel mockery, as if they were watching a clown performing in a circus for their entertainment. James Grant walked over to me with a superior air. When you see that your name is not on the list at all, try to keep your composure and don't make a scene. Don't get too upset or cry in public. Emily has been reviewing seriously for 2 full years. You simply cannot compare to her level. When Emily saw James speaking directly to me, jealousy and anger flared visibly in her eyes. Unable to control herself any longer, she suddenly rushed forward and yanked the red silk cloth off the wall with one dramatic pull. The admissions list was revealed to the public early. The entire square erupted in loud gasps of disbelief. People stared at the board with wide eyes and open mouths. What? The top score belongs to her. Is there some kind of mistake in the posting? Well, I've truly seen everything now. The world is full of unbelievable surprises. The crowd buzzed with shocked chatter, but no one was more devastated than Emily Wade. How can the top score possibly be Natalie Lane? Isn't she that notorious disgrace everyone was talking about? Her voice cracked with raw disbelief and hysteria. She stood frozen in place, staring desperately at the very top line of the list. Natalie Lane. Total score, 689 points. Admitted to Capital University. Every single word felt like a crisp, stinging slap delivered directly across her face. Impossible, this is impossible, she muttered repeatedly, her lips trembling uncontrollably. She refused to accept the reality. Her eyes darted frantically down the rest of the long list, searching in panic for her own name. It was not there. She had failed the exam completely. The double blow, losing the top spot and failing entirely, left her teetering on the edge of a complete mental breakdown. It's fake. It has to be a mistake. How could Natalie possibly be the top scorer? And why isn't my name listed anywhere? Her face turned deathly pale, her gaze overflowing with a toxic mix of panic, burning jealousy, and terrified fear. Her parents and other relatives immediately erupted into loud uproar and denial. What is going on here? The person who copied the list must have made a serious error. How could someone with her reputation possibly achieve the top score? If she can get into Capital University, then pigs can climb trees. Our Emily is so outstanding, there's absolutely no way she failed. James Grant looked at me with a complicated mixture of shock, suspicion, and disbelief, his eyes darting rapidly between the posted list and my calm face. This can't just be a coincidence, right? Natalie, are these really your actual results? Did you truly apply to Capital University yourself? His parents remained strangely silent, but their eyes moved quickly, clearly already calculating and scheming new possibilities. Tens of thousands of people filled the square that day, and the astonishing news spread like wildfire through the entire city. Everyone remembered the scandalous story of how I had been assaulted by those thugs. The gossip had dominated conversations for months. Now, the same woman who had once been pitied, ridiculed, and looked down upon had suddenly become the provincial top scorer, admitted to the country's most prestigious university. The extreme contrast left the entire crowd stunned into silence for a moment before the chatter exploded again. Emily was still crying and screaming uncontrollably, insisting she would go straight to the authorities to demand a full investigation and explanation. She jabbed her finger accusingly at me. Natalie, did you tamper with the list somehow? Did you make my name disappear on purpose? You must have stolen my rightful spot. I am the real top scorer. She was unraveling completely, her words descending into pure nonsense driven by hysteria. As for me, when I finally saw my name clearly at the very top of the list, I didn't scream with overwhelming joy, I didn't laugh loudly in triumph, and I didn't cry tears of happy relief. I simply stood there quietly, letting the moment wash over me in peaceful silence. In my mind, it felt like an old film reel playing back slowly. Every bitter hardship, every tear, every moment of pain and humiliation from both of my lifetimes flashing before my eyes. I was certain that, when I had returned to 1985, it had been a physical rebirth. But this precise moment marked the true beginning of my spiritual rebirth and healing. All those unhappy, painful memories from the past, I no longer wanted to carry or recall them. From this day forward, my heart would only hold space for happiness, hope, and new possibilities. That was why I paid no attention to Emily Wade's wild accusations or James Grant's probing questions. To me, they had become completely unimportant people from a chapter I had already closed. I simply stood there, gazing steadily at my hard-earned results with quiet satisfaction. In this world, only true talent and hard work would never betray you. I had achieved such an outstanding score because, in my previous life, although I had not attended university immediately, I had followed James into the army and worked as a dedicated teacher at the primary school attached to the military base. To better myself, I had taken rigorous self-study exams and eventually earned both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree through sheer determination. As my teaching skills and knowledge grew, I advanced to instructing middle school and then high school students. Over those decades, I had personally helped nearly 1,000 young people successfully enter top universities across the country. All of that accumulated knowledge, experience, and academic insight had traveled with me when I was reborn. I had not lost any of my memories. So why wouldn't it make perfect sense for me to become the provincial top scorer this time? Just then, the director of the Education Bureau arrived in person, and the noisy crowd fell respectfully silent. "You must be Natalie Lane," he said warmly, extending his hand. "Congratulations. You are the pride and glory of our entire city." He shook my hand with genuine respect and then announced loudly to the gathered crowd that I was indeed the provincial top scorer this year, and that the city's highest leaders were already waiting to meet and honor me. I climbed into the bureau director's sturdy 212 Jeep and, under the envious and astonished gazes of thousands of people, drove away smoothly into the distance. I knew without any doubt that this was the beginning of my brand new life. Over the following days, I was received with great respect by many prominent officials whose faces I had only ever seen before in newspapers or on television. Reporters interviewed me at length, and the local television station even filmed a special segment about me. Those were pleasant formalities, but what truly mattered to me was the substantial prize money I received as the first provincial top scorer in our city's history, 1,000 yuan. In 1985, that amount was a genuine fortune, roughly equivalent to nearly 3 years of net income for an average state factory worker. It gave me real financial confidence and security for the years of university life ahead. Although tuition fees were very low, only a few dozen yuan per year, living expenses in the bustling capital city would still be considerable. My family back in the countryside was not wealthy, and I had no desire to burden them. With this prize money safely in hand, I felt truly prepared and independent. I wrote a detailed letter home to my parents, informing them that I had been admitted to university and that I had officially broken off my engagement with James Grant. At first, they strongly disagreed. They believed marrying a promising regimental commander was an incredible stroke of good fortune that I was foolish to throw away. But later, after others explained to them just how valuable and prestigious it was to be the provincial top scorer, and how bright my future prospects now were, far surpassing the role of a commander's wife, they eventually came around. They admitted they had lacked vision and understanding, and since I was now an adult, my life decisions belonged to me alone. What I had not expected was for James Grant's parents to suddenly appear at my door one afternoon, smiling broadly and carrying baskets of fresh fruit and expensive pastries as gifts. "Natalie, our dear good daughter-in-law, having you marry into our family must surely be the greatest blessing from our ancestors watching over us." Only a short time earlier, their words of cold scorn and rejection had still been ringing painfully in my ears. Now, because I had become the provincial top scorer headed to Capital University, they were eager to curry favor and rebuild the connection. They never once mentioned the idea of breaking off the engagement. I had lived with them for decades in my previous life and knew their true nature intimately. They were utterly realistic, deeply selfish, highly opportunistic, and completely shameless in how quickly they could flip from arrogant superiority to groveling flattery. When they had looked down on me, I was nothing but a disgrace, a burden, and a jinx to their son's bright career. Now that they believed I was suddenly worthy of James, I had magically transformed into their precious, treasured daughter-in-law, a rare gem they had somehow discovered. But I had long since lost any desire to be part of the Grant family. Mr. and Mrs. Grant, I said calmly but firmly, I am here to formally cancel the engagement. My resolute tone instantly ignited their anger. Hi. So you think you're suddenly so superior just because you scored well on one exam? Now you're saying our James isn't good enough for you anymore. If it weren't for our family's strong influence and connections here in the provincial capital, you would never have achieved what you have today. You are nothing but an ungrateful wolf who bites the hand that once fed you. After hurling their bitter insults, they stormed off in a furious rage. Not long afterward, James Grant himself showed up at my door looking unusually sheepish and uncertain. In all the years I had known him, this was the very first time he had ever brought me a personal gift. It was a simple but new paper-bound notebook, along with a high-quality Hero fountain pen. On the first page, written in his neat, square handwriting, was a formal message. Study hard, work diligently, and dedicate your precious youth to the early realization of the 4 modernizations. Below it was his signature and the date. I don't want it. I refused the gift outright, pushing it gently back toward him. I sincerely want to congratulate you on your success, he said, looking a little embarrassed. I don't need your congratulations. You should spend more of your time and energy checking on Emily Wade instead. She needs your support right now. That autumn had been particularly difficult for Emily. In the college admission system of the 1980, students had to submit their school choices before taking the actual exam, basing everything on guesswork about their likely scores. Emily had been overly confident and arrogant. She had only listed the most elite universities, such as Capital Medical University. In the end, her actual score fell short by more than 20 points. Because she stubbornly refused to accept placement in any lower-tier schools, she naturally failed to secure admission anywhere. She reacted as if she had lost her mind, storming into the admissions office to protest loudly and create a chaotic scene, only to be harshly criticized and lectured by officials. Still unable to accept her failure, she directed all her rage and hatred squarely at me. Don't think you'll have an easy or peaceful time just because things are going well for you now. I'll make sure you regret this deeply. She went around spreading rumors that my high score must have come from cheating. Unfortunately for her, most people recognized her behavior for what it was: pure, corrosive jealousy that had completely stripped away her reason and dignity. Almost no one paid serious attention to her accusations. I'm telling you the truth, Natalie. Emily and I are completely clean. We are nothing more than comrades, James tried to explain earnestly. That tired line was one I had heard repeatedly for 40 long years in my previous life. I was thoroughly sick of it. James Grant, unless you have somehow lost your memory, you should clearly remember that I broke off our engagement several days ago. I was the one who ended it. I don't want you anymore. Natalie, he began, but before he could finish his sentence, 2 uniformed policemen appeared at the door. Natalie Lane, there has been a reported theft. Please come with us to the station to assist in the investigation. What theft? James looked visibly startled and confused. The director of the Supply and Marketing Cooperative, Mr. Wade, Emily's father, had reported that more than 500 yuan had mysteriously gone missing from the counter. He was pointing the finger directly at me as the suspected thief. I listened quietly, remaining completely unafraid, because I knew with absolute certainty that I had not stolen anything. This was obviously Emily's desperate, last-ditch attempt, teaming up with her father, to frame me and ruin my bright future at Capital University. Fine, I said calmly. I'll go with you. The innocent have nothing to fear from the truth. James immediately panicked on my behalf. Officers, there must be some mistake here. Natalie is not the kind of person who would ever steal. I can personally vouch for her good character. Hearing him defend me gave me a small, bittersweet sense of comfort. The romantic love I once felt had completely died, but at least a sliver of basic trust still remained. Don't worry, one of the officers reassured him. We will not wrong an innocent person, and we will not allow a guilty one to escape justice. At the police station, even though security cameras did not exist in those days, the experienced officers quickly saw through the situation. They knew I had a promising future ahead, and had just received a substantial 1,000 yuan prize. There was no logical reason for me to risk everything by committing such a stupid crime. It was clear this was a blatant frame-up attempt. Before long, I was fully cleared of all suspicion. Mr. Wade was arrested instead. As the police dug deeper into the case, they uncovered numerous previous instances of him abusing his official position for personal gain, embezzling funds, and accepting bribes over many years. The man who had tried to destroy my reputation had ended up destroying his own life and landing himself in prison. This was entirely Mr. Wade's idea, James said later, making a special trip to my place to explain. It had absolutely nothing to do with Emily. She didn't know anything about it. Please don't blame her for her father's actions. I offered him a small, knowing smile. James, why is it that every single time something bad or suspicious happens, Emily always turns out to be completely innocent in your eyes? That single pointed question left him speechless and uncomfortable. You should go now, I said gently but firmly. I need to start packing my things for Capital University. When exactly do you leave? I'll come see you off at the train station. No need, I shook my head with finality. If I have no plans to see you again in the future, then there is no reason to have a formal farewell. On the morning I departed for Capital University, I did not see James Grant waiting on the platform, but since I had no lingering expectations, I felt no disappointment. However, as the train began to slowly pull out of the station, I suddenly caught sight of him in the distance, sweat pouring down his face, running desperately along the platform. He chased after the moving train for several hundred meters, waving his arms frantically and shouting something I could not quite make out over the noise. I guessed he had been delayed once again because of Emily Wade, but the sight no longer carried any power to hurt or move me. University life in the bustling capital was both busy and wonderfully exciting. My greatest and most pleasant surprise came during the mandatory military training period when I met the incredibly handsome and commanding instructor. Colonel Nhi Jin Cheng, the respected leader of the elite Langya Special Forces. From the very first moment he appeared on the training field, he instantly became the secret dream man of nearly every female student on campus. I remembered clearly that James had once told me, during an all-army martial arts competition, that Colonel Nhi was his personal idol and role model. During training sessions, Colonel Nhi was strict, disciplined, and serious. But once the drills ended, he revealed a surprisingly warm, approachable, and thoughtful side. Every evening, I would often spot him in the university library, deeply focused on studying various materials. I later learned that he had come to Capital University, primarily because its extensive library contained many valuable foreign academic journals and technical magazines that were difficult to access elsewhere. A strong and modern military must be built upon strong science and advanced technology, he once said to me earnestly during a conversation. From my unique perspective, armed with the knowledge and wisdom gained from 2 full lifetimes, I knew he was absolutely correct. I volunteered without hesitation to help him translate complex foreign research papers and specialized magazines. My English language skills, which had been honed and perfected over 2 lifetimes of dedicated self-study and teaching, were exceptionally fluent and precise. I had even earned a perfect score on the English section of the college entrance exam, which in the 1980s made me stand out dramatically among my peers. Colonel Nhi had not expected my English proficiency to be so advanced. After the formal training period ended, he began coming to campus on weekends to continue his important research. We spent more and more time working together, and our conversations grew deeper and more frequent. Eventually, gentle rumors about us began to circulate quietly around the university. I felt a little embarrassed by the gossip, but Nhi Jin Cheng reassured me with a gentle smile. It's perfectly fine. People can say whatever they want, it's only their mouths moving. It doesn't affect us. During this happy period, I also received several handwritten letters from James Grant. The first one opened with, "Natalie, how are you settling in at Capital University? Have you gotten used to the fast pace and new environment there? I'm truly sorry that I missed seeing you off at the train station that day." After Emily's father was arrested, her mental and emotional state became quite unstable. She fell seriously ill, and I felt I had to stay and take care of her. Once I've handled these matters properly, I will come visit you at the university. I didn't bother reading any further. I folded the letter and tossed it straight into the wastebasket without a second thought. When winter break arrived, I chose not to return home to the countryside. Nhi Jin Cheng was deeply immersed in writing an important academic paper, and I stayed on campus to work as his dedicated assistant. He arranged for a temporary dorm room and remained there every day. We shared meals together, studied side by side in the library, and our feelings for each other deepened naturally and beautifully over time. I realized with quiet wonder that, despite having already lived through 2 complete lifetimes, this was the very first time I had experienced the genuine, warm stirrings of real, mutual romantic love. But I still didn't dare confess my feelings openly. Nhi Jin Cheng was an exceptionally outstanding man, talented, principled, and highly respected, and I still carried the lingering emotional shadows of my past trauma. One peaceful evening, I went to the university cafeteria to pick up dinner for both of us, planning to bring the food back to the quiet library lounge where we often worked. That was when I suddenly saw James Grant standing directly in my path, blocking my way. "Natalie, I came all this way to see you," he said, his smile carrying a noticeable trace of bitterness and regret. "I'm doing fine. You really don't need to check up on me anymore," I replied calmly, trying to walk around him. "Natalie, I was wrong," he said, stepping sideways to block me again. "I only truly realized how valuable and special you are after you left my life." I noticed how much he had changed in appearance. Once so meticulously concerned about his image and uniform, he now looked unshaven, tired, and somewhat disheveled. "Can we please not break up? I've come to understand that you are the woman who is truly most suited for me." His voice grew more intense and solemn as he spoke. To me, his words sounded like a poorly written, unconvincing joke from a bad play. "Captain Grant, you should be saying those exact words to your true soulmate instead. It was my engagement to you that once prevented you from being openly with the woman you actually loved. Now I have stepped aside completely. There are no more obstacles standing in your way. You should marry her as soon as possible. I won't be sending any wedding gift, but I do sincerely wish the two of you a long and harmonious life together." My words were spoken with complete sincerity, without any trace of sarcasm or hidden bitterness. But James's face flushed deep red with sudden anger. "Don't mention that woman to me again. That so-called soulmate has become nothing but a curse on my life. She has completely ruined my future." When he spoke about Emily Wade, his teeth were clenched tightly in visible rage. He then told me what had happened a month earlier. The Langya Special Forces had conducted a major national selection process. James had signed up eagerly and had even achieved first place in the demanding cross-country event. He had been overjoyed and confident. However, the mandatory post-competition medical inspection revealed that he had tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Not only were all his excellent results immediately nullified, but he was also publicly criticized and demoted from company commander down to platoon leader. James was furious because he had known absolutely nothing about the drugs. The subsequent investigation uncovered that Emily Wade had secretly tampered with his drinking water before the event. She had desperately wanted him to succeed and enter the elite unit so she could bask in the reflected glory. But her reckless action had instead destroyed his promising military career. As a direct consequence, Emily herself was expelled from the medical unit in disgrace. "That's going too far," I said quietly. How could she stoop to such a low and dangerous level? Hearing James bitterly rant about Emily suddenly brought back a flood of old memories from my previous life. "Platoon Leader Grant," I said in a perfectly even, neutral tone, "I'm quite sure that Emily must be innocent in this matter. She would never have deliberately drugged you on purpose. After all, she has always been so kind-hearted and pure in your eyes. You should find it in your heart to forgive her completely." The sharp boomerang effect of my carefully chosen words left James standing there with his mouth open in stunned, speechless silence. I didn't bother looking at his face any longer. Thinking that NHI Jin Cheng was probably getting hungry by now, I turned and continued walking toward the library with the dinner trays in my hands. But James was not ready to give up. He hurried after me persistently. "Natalie, I know deep down that you still like me. You were only jealous of Emily before. Now that I've finally come to my senses, please don't stay mad at me anymore, okay? You've clearly been waiting patiently for me all this time. Otherwise, why would you, unlike so many other college girls who already have boyfriends, still come to the cafeteria alone every day?" I stopped abruptly and turned to face him directly, my patience finally wearing thin. "I already have someone I truly like. Don't flatter yourself by assuming otherwise." James refused to believe me. "Who is he? Let me see this person for myself. I don't believe there is anyone better than me or more perfectly suited for you." Before he could finish speaking, a cool, calm, and authoritative voice suddenly cut through the air. "Is that so? Then let's make a fair comparison right now." NHI Jin Cheng had arrived quietly behind us. "Who's the one talking so arrogantly? Natalie is my woman now. No one is going to take her away from me." James bristled immediately, ready to argue back heatedly. But the moment he got a clear look at NHI Jin Cheng's face and recognized his rank and identity, he froze completely. Then, out of ingrained military habit, he snapped to sharp attention and saluted respectfully. "Good day, Commander." NHI Jin Cheng waved his hand casually. "There's no need for formal salutes here. But I must ask you not to harass my girlfriend again in the future." With those firm words, he reached out and took my hand gently but possessively. Under James Grant's utterly shocked and bewildered gaze, he led me away toward the library. Once we were safely out of sight, I tried to pull my hand free, feeling a little shy. "All right, you can let go now. We don't need to continue pretending." "Who said I was only pretending?" His grip tightened ever so slightly, warm and reassuring. "I like you, Natalie. This is completely real. Once I hold your hand, I have no intention of ever letting go. I want to hold it for the rest of our lives." My face flushed with warmth and happiness. My heart felt as though it was overflowing with light. And so, NHI Jin Cheng and I officially began dating, while James Grant slunk away in painful defeat. However, it wasn't long before the peaceful campus was suddenly plastered with ugly big character posters. They vividly and maliciously described how I had supposedly been assaulted by multiple thugs, slandering me viciously as a loose and immoral woman. Once again, I found myself thrust unwillingly into the center of cruel public gossip and speculation. What touched and healed me most deeply during this difficult time was that NHI Jin Cheng not only refused to believe or despise me, he stood firmly and protectively by my side without any hesitation. "Jen Cheng," I asked him one quiet evening through eyes filled with unshed tears, "I want you to know the truth. I was never actually violated that night. My body is still pure. Do you believe me?" He wiped my tears away with gentle fingers and looked at me with infinite tenderness. "Silly girl. Whether or not you were physically harmed in the past, you have always been, and will always be, pure and flawless in my heart. Nothing can change that." I threw myself into his strong, comforting arms and wept freely for the first time in what felt like forever. After enduring 2 painful lifetimes, my deeply wounded heart was finally beginning to heal, thanks to the love and unwavering support of NHI Jin Cheng. He went even further to prove his devotion. For an entire month, he quietly staked out locations back in the provincial capital until he finally tracked down the 3 thugs who had attacked me years earlier. He caught them red-handed while they were attempting to assault another innocent woman. Without mercy, he beat them severely before handing them over to the police. Through the official investigation and court records, my name was completely and publicly cleared of all the old slander and rumors. I loved him even more fiercely for his actions and sense of justice. Later, it was conclusively proven that the malicious big character posters had been deliberately created and spread across the Capital University campus by none other than Emily Wade. Her obsessive hatred for me had driven her to the brink of madness. Word eventually reached us that James Grant had finally had a complete and irreversible falling out with her over this incident. In response, Emily dropped all pretense of innocence and began openly telling anyone who would listen about her long-term secret affair with James, aggressively demanding that he take full responsibility for her. In the end, James had no choice but to retire from the army in complete disgrace. He spent the rest of his life living quietly in ruin and regret. For the next 40 years, he and Emily remained trapped in a toxic, painful, on-and-off relationship that only brought mutual destruction and endless suffering to both of them. As for me, I married the wonderful Nhi Jin Cheng. We built a beautiful life together, filled with love, respect, and shared purpose. We had children and later grandchildren, eventually enjoying the warmth of 5 generations living harmoniously under one roof. It turned out that true happiness was actually quite simple after all. You only needed 2 things: the courage to walk away from the wrong person who could never value you, and the wisdom to recognize and cherish the right person who would love and protect you with all his heart.